Hi YouTube, it's me again, and I have decided to do the RRG story as a book on tape like thing. I might put some pictures in it if I feel like it, but it'll really just be me reading the chapter aloud, so if you don't like that, tough toenails, it's my story, not yours. And so, here as promised is the first chapter. Whatever, here goes nothing. Blas was dreaming again. She knew she needed to wake up, but she was dreaming anyway. I've got to get out of here, out of this dreamland, and back to reality, she thought. Those dreams, always the same thing, over and over, again and again, keeping her from her goal of escape. A little house in the suburbs of a large city. A little garden. It was where they lived. It was where her brothers lived. In the dream she was there, living with them. The brothers that she'd never met, face to face, but only heard stories about. There was the eldest brother. He had ridiculously long vermilion orange hair, and crimson eyes that seemed to hold almost as much wisdom as the scientist that had brought her to life, and burned with a fire of determination and intelligence, the eyes of a leader. The middle brother had jet black hair that he kept in a ponytail atop his head. His deep green eyes always seemed to be blazing with a competitive spirit, daring anyone and everyone to challenge him, and they held a sharpness to them, ready to battle whatever foe came his way. The eyes of the warrior. Then there was the youngest brother. He had blonde hair, mostly cut close to his scalp, save 2 locks that were forked up in the front, and a few longer strands at the nape of his neck. His eyes were gentle and caring, but had this look to them. A look that seemed to dare an unseen enemy to attempt to harm those he cared about. But at the same time, I'm warning them he'll show no mercy if they do so. The eyes of a hero. And the dreams were wonderful. They were filled with wondrous adventures, with excitement around every corner, to places Blas had never been, with friends she'd never met. Everything was so perfect in the dreams. But dreams were dreams. And if she really wanted to meet them, she had to get out of this stupid stasis tube first. Wake up, she told herself. Wake up! Finally her eyes opened, and her vision was blurred by the water in the stasis tube she was floating in. She could finally feel the world again, the water soaking her to the bone, the breathing mask strapped to her face, and the unbelievable hatred for the man that put Brisbane, she growled. You're going to pay, Brisbane, Blas said to no one in particular. I've just got to get out of here first. With that thought, she swung her steel boot-clad foot against the glass of the tube and tore off the breathing mask at the same time. The glass shattered and the water rushed into the lab and Blast's mouth. Blast fell from the tube and on her knees to the floor, coughing up the water. As the water slid off her hair and clothes, she smirked and thought, See, Brisbane, you can't beat a ratty rough girl that easily. She used one of her special powers to evaporate the water in her clothes and hair, and was temporarily enveloped in a cloud of steam as she did so. She smirked to herself again. You're in for it, Brisbane, she said to no one. Just wait until me and Burn... She stopped mid-sentence, realizing that while she was ranting on to nobody like a crazy person, she'd forgotten about her younger twin, who'd been imprisoned at the same time she was. Blas looked around frantically and was somewhat relieved to see a second stasis tube containing the unconscious form of her sister, Burn. She looked so peaceful that Blas almost felt guilty about how she was going to have to disturb her sister's peaceful slumber. Blas ran her hand on the glass and smiled, happy that Brisbane hadn't separated her from Burn. Now she just needed her younger sister to wake up. She drew her hand, clad in a black fingerless glove, curled it into a fist, and slammed it against the glass with the force of a hurricane. The tube shattered with a satisfying crack, but amazingly, Burn remained asleep. Blas chuckled as she gently removed the no longer needed breathing mask from Burn's face, and evaporated the water from her sister's clothes and hair. Then she gently began to shake her sister's shoulder. Wake up, Burn, Blas whispered. Nap time's over. 5 more minutes, Bern groaned as she stirred, but still didn't wake. Blast sighed and smiled. Guess we have to do this the hard way, Blast said. She sent a small electrical current through her index finger and touched it to Bern's shoulder, sending a jolt through her younger sister, who flinched and began to open her eyes slightly. Bern was a bit disoriented at first, but soon she returned to reality and weakly spoke. "Me-chan?" Blast smiled at the adorability of Bern using the Japanese word for sister as a term of endearment. She nodded, deciding that her sister was letting everything that had happened sink in. Brisbane revealing that he was only using them as tools in a plot for world domination, before forcibly knocking them out and shoving them into the tubes. Blast knew exactly when it had all sunk in, because Bern's red magenta eyes snapped open and widened in fear. "Me-chan!" Bern shrieked, and she sprung from the tube and embraced her sister in pure fear. Blast tenderly wrapped her arms around Bern. "Shh, Bern, it's okay," Blast whispered, gently stroking her twin's hair, trying to calm the sobbing superhuman. "It's all right now, Bern. We're free, and I swear that madman Brisbane will never hurt you again." Slowly, Bern's sobs and tears digressed into soft whimpers, and she looked into her sister's eyes, the remnants of her tears still glistening in her own as she said, "Me-chan, what are we gonna do now?" It was a simple question, but nonetheless one that had Blast's mind boggled. What were they gonna do now? They couldn't stay here, that was for sure. Otherwise Brisbane would come and follow up on his promise to brainwash them. But on the other hand, they knew nothing of what was outside this godforsaken lab. They'd never been outside its confines. The force fields on all the doors and around the training areas made sure of that. But they had little other choice. It was go somewhere else or have their minds wiped by a psychotic madman. Needless to say, going somewhere else sounded like a pretty obvious choice compared to the alternative. "We're going to get out of here and go somewhere," Blast said, slowly releasing Bern from the hug while silently repeating, "Please don't ask where, please don't ask where." But the question that came was different, but just as difficult. "What about Bo?" Bern asked, tilting her head. This only reinforced Blast's hatred for questions, but at the same time made her remember something. Bo, their other sister, their smart, brunette, turquoise-eyed, sarcastic, pushy, naggy 3-year-old, physically, strategist of a little sister, disappeared a few months before they were imprisoned. Brisbane had said he'd sent her to complete her training with their brothers. Like they were gonna believe that now. Blast sighed and rubbed the back of her head awkwardly. "I'm not sure. There's no way I'm believing that Brisbane really sent her to train with our brothers. I don't trust anything that guy says. But we have got to get out of here. And we're gonna destroy this lab, because personally, I never want to come back." "But," Bern said quietly, "what if Brisbane hid Bo somewhere in the lab? Then if we destroy it, she'll get hurt. We have to at least look before we do anything. Please!" Then Bern gave her best imitation of a begging puppy. Blast looked at her dryly and put both hands on her hips and sighed, "I hate it when you make sense, Bern." In Blast language, that translated to, "I can't say no to that face." Bern smiled. "Okay," Blast said. "You go one way and I'll go the other. Break down walls, use X-ray vision, or whatever the hell else it takes. If she's here, we'll find her. We will meet in the courtyard when we're done." Bern nodded and the two super beings took off in different directions. They did exactly what Blast said. Walls toppled, furniture was knocked over, previously forbidden rooms were investigated. X-ray vision, previously forbidden outside of training, pierced every solid object there was, searching for any evidence of a third active stasis tube possibly holding their sister. But it was all in vain. Bo Alyssa Radivov was nowhere to be found. With a sigh, Blast and Bern, who were in opposite corners of the building, headed for the courtyard, which was little more than a patch of dry, unattended grass. "No luck?" Blast said when she saw Bern emerge from another door. The magenta ruff shook her head. The violet sister sighed and said, "I guess we should have expected it. Brisbane wouldn't hide Bo where we could easily get to her. He knows we're strongest when we're all together. He'd want to keep us separated." Then she sighed again, then started walking towards the door. Bern tilted her head and asked, "Chan, where are you going?" Blast paused, but didn't turn around. we need to get some things before we leave.